Hello, and welcome to the WeightCare podcast. Conversations about a new era of weight management and GLP-1 weight loss medications. I'm Sharon Polsky, your host, the GLP-1 Fact Fairy. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about nutrition. And you've heard me say this multiple times before. There are 5 building blocks to health and wellness. And when you start taking your GLP-1 weight loss medications, it's a great time to take advantage of the opportunity of using those GLP-1s to fix these 5 building blocks of health and wellness. And they are hydration, drinking 2 to 3 liters of water per day, exercise or movement, especially strength training, stress management, not avoiding stress, but what do we do to lower our stress, sleep, what do we do to improve our sleep, adding magnesium, things like that. And the last one is nutrition. And the GLP-1s give you this really amazing opportunity of crowding out that food noise and giving you, for the first time in your life, the opportunity to fix your nutrition without the cravings and these other things. So today, we are going to talk to Steph Skeba. She is an expert on nutrition, and she's a CrossFit coach, and she's got all these great credentials. And we are really going to talk about nutrition and the importance of learning to eat a well-balanced diet. And it was really funny because I was at family dinner on Sunday, and I was there with my cousin, and my cousin was a nurse, and she had terrible eating habits, and she recently retired. And her husband turns to me and says, "Sharon, you're making my wife eat like a bodybuilder." And I said, what? What do you mean I'm making your wife eat like a bodybuilder? And he goes, "She eats protein 4 meals a day, and that's how bodybuilders eat. That's not how real people eat." I was so blown away by this statement that real people don't eat protein. Yes, real people eat protein. It's the building block of all of your muscles inside of your body. And so I just thought it was so funny that the perception is that bodybuilders are the only people that eat protein. And I've heard this before, but it just kind of blindsided me a little bit. And her health has so vastly improved in the last year since I've been coaching her, and really just coaching her on her nutrition and adding a little bit of exercise. And he didn't see how the protein had so completely transformed her health. And he was sitting there talking about how all he could talk about was how she eats like a bodybuilder, not the benefits of doing that. So it made me think of 2 things. A, how little people know about actual nutrition, and B, how people are so myopic in their thinking, and he's only looking at her actions and not the results, and how your loved ones don't always support you in the things that you do. So anyway, today we are going to talk to Steph Skeba, and we are going to talk about GLP-1s and the importance of using that as an opportunity to fix your nutrition. I want to welcome to the WeightCare podcast, Steph Skeba, and she is going to tell us a little bit about herself, and we are going to have a conversation about healthy nutrition. It's as easy as that. Welcome to the show, Steph.
Thanks. I'm all bundled up here in Minnesota. My name is Stephanie Skeba, registered dietitian. Been a dietitian for 17 years and grew up in Chicago, went to Purdue, majored in dietetics, and now I currently do nutrition as well as I'm a personal trainer and I teach CrossFit on Thursdays. So
Yeah, you're like that
buckets.
multifaceted
Yeah.
person that gets, and I love seeing that. That's my love language, is people that we really want to help clients with their nutrition and their exercise. And
Yeah.
so I love that that's like your love language as well.
Yes. Yes. It has to go hand in hand. I was studying to be a dietitian. I'm like, we also need exercise. We need both of these together. So
Yeah. And what do you think about nutrition? Why is it so complicated for people? Do you think it's the industry that's made it seem so complicated? Or is it because there's so much information that disagrees with itself? Or why do you think nutrition is just so difficult for people?
yeah, I tell my clients, you're just a big chemistry lab. So one size fits you. And your hormones change, your environment changes, your gut microbiome changes. So, like, I used to be a vegetarian because I was doing an Ironman and running marathons and having to have a lot of carbohydrates. And then that season when I switched into CrossFit didn't work anymore and I had to get more protein. So things can change. I think people, one, they think they're an expert because everybody eats. Two, the Instagram, it just drives me nuts because I had to do 4 years of organic chemistry, biochemistry, getting a bachelor's in science. Then you have a 5th year competitive internship. So I was just one of 6 people in Chicago for this internship, and then passing your boards to become a dietitian. Now on Instagram or Twitter, it's just like, hey, I'm a nutrition coach. They've had like a weekend cert. So it's really, everyone thinks they're an expert because this is what worked for me. This is what worked for my clients, but it's not always based on science. And it's very hard to prove. A lot of the nutrition studies are correlations, it's not causations. So they're
Yes.
correlated of, hey, it's just like saying murder goes up in the summer and so does ice cream sales. So ice cream causes murder. So a lot of the
Yeah, yeah,
nutrition
yeah.
studies are correlation, and they'll say, oh, meat causes cancer or this causes this, where it's like, okay, well, what was their stress level? What was their microbiome like? What was their environment like? Well, there's so many other variables we can't put people in a test tube. So I don't know
And
if
I
that
talk
answered your
about
question.
those
It's just,
five building blocks of health all the
yeah,
time: stress, sleep,
yeah,
hydration,
yeah,
exercise or movement, and nutrition. And people
yeah,
will be like, I hear it all the time. My nutrition is perfect. Well,
yeah,
perfect for you, or perfect based
right.
on the science, or perfect based on what your coach says is perfect. And that's this piece of it. And if your coach, if whoever coaches you for nutrition isn't talking about these four other things, and gut microbiome and the
Right.
gut brain axis and all this, they're missing a massive piece of you.
Totally. Totally. Yep.
So how do you start the conversation with nutrition with somebody? Somebody walks into you and they say, well, I think I eat really healthy. How do you start those conversations with people?
Yeah, I say, we look at 4 things as dietitians. We're not the food police. We're not here to like shame them or judge them on what they eat, but we look at the quality of the food, number one. So can I grow it, hunt and pick it, quality number one? We're like, okay, great. You're not eating Cheetos, you're eating almonds, but quantity next. Are you eating 1,000 calories of almonds? So we look at quality, quantity, and then looking at diversity, because your gut microbiome loves diversity, because people kind of get in ruts and eat the same things and haven't pulled in different plants and different colors. And then lastly, timing, especially for athletes, like when are we eating carbs? When are we eating protein? The timing of foods correlated with your workout. So quality, quantity, diversity, and timing. And I just say, hey, you can't make 40 different nutrients, so this is why we have to eat. We have to have them from plants and animals, and we're eating to support your exercise and your hormones and not body fat. That's our goal.
If you were to give people like a quick hack on a like you're on a daily on a meal that they need to do every day, that's just like a quick hack, do you have like a quick hack, or do you really try to look at them more holistically?
I think more holistically, and I love the Atomic Habits books from James Clear, and he always just says like 1% better, because I think also people get overwhelmed and, oh my gosh, I have to do meal prep and then count my calories and do this and that. It's like, hey, like what's 1% better? Like, is that one more glass of water? Is that one more vegetable? But the hack is, I say like, let's reverse the pyramid. So the old food pyramid, which I grew up in, is like, let's flip it and we're going to go veggies, protein, fat, fruit, starch, sugar. So like in that order. So most people are eating way more starch than vegetables. Most people are eating way more fat than anything. So veggies, protein, fat, some fruit, little starch, no sugars. Kind of where
And let's talk
we
about sugar, because that's one of the biggest ones that I see. It's insidious. It's in everything. Like, I cannot get my clients to read a label, but the label literally tells you what's in it, and
yeah.
and they don't know how to read a label. But how do we really help our clients stop eating sugar, because it is in everything? I love Food Network. I watch cooking shows, and I'm
Yeah.
appalled
Yeah.
at like the sticks of butter and the cups of sugar that's in a beef recipe. Like, there is
Yeah.
sugar in everything.
I know. I know. Yes. Yeah, I mean the label, everything is. I'm married to a marketer who works at General Mills. He's basically like good, job security. He's like telling people to eat these foods, and I'm like, don't eat these foods. But they have the smartest people in the world telling you, like, the front sells you, but the back informs you. So yes, like reading those ingredients, can I grow it, hunt and pick it? It's impossible to eat perfect, especially in the United States, unfortunately. Um, yeah, I think like with sugar, we know that everybody has a healthy brain that is seeking dopamine. Like, I want to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So we have the same brain as our ancestors, who would have to walk 5 miles and then they'd find this small bush of berries and eat the berries and be like, whoa, I need that. I need that to survive. And your brain is like, I need that to survive. Go back to that. Go back to that. Now I can walk outside my door and be hammered with sugar. And we know with high fructose corn syrup, that dopamine hit is even higher. So I still have the brain go to that berry bush that I need to survive, but it's a higher dopamine hit with those processed sugars like the high fructose corn syrup. So your brain is like, I need that to survive. I need that to survive. So it's hard. But
Let's talk about high fructose corn syrup for a second, because I know in the last 2 years, they've really changed. And your significant other will probably agree with this. They aren't calling it high fructose corn syrup anymore. They're calling it HFCS. And people don't know it's high fructose corn syrup. And I have people tell me all the time, there's no high fructose corn syrup in it. I'm like, read me the label. I'm like, that's high fructose corn syrup. So they're constantly changing the labels in order to get us to eat those things. So is a hack like, don't eat packaged food as often? Like, is that your hack to try to get people away from some of that chemicals type stuff?
It's not about processed food, because we would die if we didn't have processed food. Processed food is like, I have frozen vegetables. Like the only ingredients is broccoli stir fry, so it's with canning and freezing, like that is considered processed because it's in a package, but there's a lot of good that can have, like if the dead of winter in Minnesota, there's no way I'm getting fresh produce. So we do have to have some processing. It's more like the junk food. So yes, and teaching them anything with OS, glucose, fructose, galactose. The OS means sugar. And sugar is natural. Like there's a sugar cane, but it comes with the antidote, which is fiber. So you have to eat through bark to get to sugar. So the antidote of sugar is fiber. So if we can start people laying a base of like getting in fiber first, they won't have that huge blood sugar spike.
And speaking of fiber, so how do we get people, like I have clients that will say to me every day, I take a fiber supplement. I take Mucilex. I take blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, could you just eat an apple for me, please?
Yeah, exactly.
Could you just, why is eating our fiber from an apple, from broccoli, from our fruits and vegetables so much better for us than taking that fiber supplement?
I know. I get so annoyed when everyone's just on fiber supplements and then also like gummies. Like one, you can't get it, like you can't get a therapeutic dosage of anything in a gummy. And then two,
well, it has no shelf life, by the way. On the gummy, I worked for supplement companies for years. The manufacturing shelf life of a gummy is very, very short. It has to be sold and turned over very, very quickly. It's also a very expensive manufacturing process. So if you're buying anything in a gummy form, it's not healthy. But that's a whole other issue for another day.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Right. And your body starts to depend on that too. So I have people like, I'm only regular because I'm taking my Metamucil and my fiber supplements. I'm like, we got to get people to eat 6, unless you're eating 9 cups of fruits and vegetables, everyone can work on more produce. So 6 to 9 cups of fruits and vegetables. And that's one of my favorite studies too. It's the 800-gram challenge. And we'll do it at our CrossFit gym a lot of, just have people weigh 800 grams by weight of fruit and vegetable. And it's so much food, but one, they're going to feel a lot fuller. So once you have fiber, you're going to feel fuller. I get that all the time.
Once you chew fiber, eat your fiber.
Yes, exactly. Yes, not taking a supplement. Absolutely. And when you're chewing, you get the digestive enzymes from your saliva too.
I was just going to ask. That was going to be my next question. So talk about that.
Yeah. So a lot of people, all the time just come in with a lot of gut stuff. I'm feeling bloated. I'm constipated. I have diarrhea, this and that. I'm like, you need to chill and chew, because your digestive system starts in your saliva. You start to break down carbohydrates with your saliva. So chewing to like baby food consistency, you get the natural digestive enzymes to start breaking down your food. Most people are eating one really fast, and then two in a stressful situation. Like I'm answering emails, I'm on this call. So they're in sympathetic, which shuts down parasympathetic system, which is your rest and digest. So you are going to feel more bloated, or you are going to have diarrhea, or you're going to see undigested food in your stools because you weren't in parasympathetic, you weren't chilling and calming down in that parasympathetic system and chewing your food to the baby food consistency to get those digestive enzymes.
I talk about this with protein all the time, because everybody wants to drink a protein shake. Everybody on the planet wants a protein. First of all, the quality of the protein shakes they're drinking are horrifically bad to begin with. Right. They're buying the cheapest stuff they can on Amazon. It's sat in a warehouse in 110-degree weather, and it's the worst protein supplement possible, and it's cheap and it's poor quality. But then they're drinking it and not chewing it. And they say to me, why do I feel so much better when I eat a steak than when I
Yeah.
eat this,
Yeah.
drink this protein shake that makes me bloated? I'm like, you just answered your own question.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, and I'll like test my own blood sugars, and when I do a shake, my blood sugar goes really high because again, I'm not chewing. I'm not chewing my food. I'm not getting those digestive enzymes. I'm just like straight calories.
Yeah.
So,
And you're hungry so much quicker. When you eat a steak, that'll
yeah.
keep you if you eat steak and broccoli and avocado, you
Yeah.
will be satiated for 3 to 4 hours.
Yep.
You have a cheap protein shake that goes right through you, you are
Yep.
starving
Yep.
in 40 minutes, but it was the same amount of calories.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yep. And you
And
didn't have
and
any
I
like
do think there's
volume.
a
Yeah.
oh yeah, a volume. I do think there's a place for shakes and supplements and things like that. If I have a client, like I
100%.
can barely get my ladies to get to 80 to 100. I mean, I need to get them to 120 to 160 grams of protein a day. I can barely get them to 80 to 100. And so I
Yeah.
will add I'm laughing at your cat in the background. I can't get
Oh
enough of
gosh.
him. He's the cutest thing ever. But
Sorry.
I can't get them to get to 80 to 100 grams. Oh, I don't care. The cat can totally be in.
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's
just
cute.
wild.
But so I will give them a protein shake, but I will constantly explain to them the benefits of chewing their food and saliva and
Yes.
things like that to try to get
Yes.
them away from it.
Yeah, I agree. I have to do that a lot because yes, women one undereat and undereat protein. So and they're like, well, I'm not hungry, so we might have to kind of force that fourth meal and get that shake in, and especially post workout. So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
time and place.
And now let's talk about healthy fat. So I come from a generation, I'm 51 years old, and my generation was told fat makes you fat. And
Right,
then I learned along the way that
right,
my nervous system, my neurological system shuts down when I don't eat enough healthy fats. I get
yeah,
neurological tremors, I get migraine
yeah,
headaches, I
yeah,
get jaw pain that came out of nowhere when I don't eat healthy fats.
right.
And then I was a competitive fitness competitor and I started learning more and more about nutrition and the importance of healthy fats. What do we say to those clients that are like, no, but fat makes me fat. I can't eat fat. How do we combat that as
Mhm.
coaches?
Yeah, well, anything you overeat in your body doesn't need can be stored. So, yes, grew up in the 90s where everything was low fat, skim milk. So when you take down fat, then the sugar goes up. So like skim milk is just basically sugar water. Fat-free salad dressing is basically sugar water. You need fat to absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, especially in vegetables. So putting on fat-free dressing is not helping absorb those vitamin A and vitamin E, the fat-soluble vitamins from your vegetables. And then your brain is 60% fat. So if you're not eating fat, you're hurting your brain. And we know that when you decrease fat, increase sugar, blood sugars go up. And when your blood sugar is high, that increases cholesterol, that increases blood pressure, that increases everything that thinks it's fat, but it's really the sugar. And sugar and fat are completely different. So taking out fat increases sugar. Yeah, there's this great study. I'll have to send it to you. It's a
Please.
um, gosh, Mary, blanking on her name, but her husband was suffering from dementia and she had him draw like a clock and it's just like a random like circle and there's numbers. It's not even looking like a clock. And then she just did 2 weeks of more fat, especially like MCT oil, like that just goes straight to the brain and it's looking better at a clock. And then after 30 days, it's like perfect. So it's just a very visual learner of how increasing the good fats really help the brain.
Well, they're
And if you don't
starting to,
have
I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, you're fine. And cholesterol builds all of your hormones. So if you're not eating fat, one, your body makes 70% of its own cholesterol. Like if you're not eating fat, it's just going to still make cholesterol. But now you're suffering making insulin and cortisol and progesterone and estrogen and testosterone if you're going really, really low fat.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to bring up. So talk to us about eggs. So in addition to living fat free, we were all told not to eat egg yolks because it raises our cholesterol.
I know, right? That is 1950s nutrition. The Nutrition Advisory Board.
And they're still telling people that.
Yeah, they redacted that statement because yes, that is so untrue because the yolk turns into the chicken. So there's so much nutrients, especially choline, which is perfect for your brain and your eye development. So yeah, taking out the most nutritious part, what are we doing? What are we doing? No. So if you can grow it, hunt and pick it, that's what we want. And we test in our clinic, we can test people's micronutrients. So we look at a blood panel and it looks at the last 6 months, not just your plasma. Because if you go to your doctor and they test your plasma, they're like, hey, your B12's fine, but because I had a steak last night. But we look at the intracellular, what's being absorbed inside your cells from the last 6 months, because you could have, hey, my plasma's fine in B12, but not in my cells. And we'll see a ton of deficiencies in choline because of that, for people not having those good, the good egg yolk,
And
those
what
nutrients.
what does choline deficiency cause?
Yeah, brain, like you said, anything neurological and eye issues and basically everything in your nervous system in your brain.
And it
So
really, people, especially women going through perimenopause and menopause, really need extra choline for it helps with the
yeah,
brain fog, it helps
right,
with the fatigue, mental fatigue,
right,
the
right.
neurotransmitters.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So really, so how many meals a day do you think is optimal for clients to eat? Eat, like actually chew a meal.
I know. I try to do four. I tell women, we're not small men. We don't eat like men or should train like them because our hormones are doing something different every week. And I know you always say that too, of like when we're scanning people on the Evolt scan, same time each month for women, because it's like your hormones are doing something different each week. So for women, I'm like, hey, your body doesn't do great with more than a 16-hour fast. So we're not small men. Men can fast, but we want to make sure that you're not going longer than 16 hours. And I try to do 4 meals because then that's going to help their blood sugars kind of do this throughout the day. And then help prevent cravings, help prevent the fatigue, help prevent anxiety. And it's hard if I'm trying to get in 130 grams of protein to somebody, your kidneys can't absorb more than 40 grams. So if you're just doing 2 meals, I can't do 70 grams of protein 2 times a day, or that's just expensive urine at that point. Um, and people don't know that when you eat a carb, it's a carbohydrate attached to water. When you eat a protein, it's carbon attached to water, carbon attached to nitrogen for your protein. And then with your fat, it's tricarbon bond. So I'm going on a tangent, but when you lose fat, your cells shrink and you release carbon by your breath. So you don't poop out fat, you don't breathe out, or you don't pee out fat, you breathe out fat. So there's the other thing going back to why are people so confused. Hey, I went low carb and I lost weight because you lost water. And you excreted carbon. Hey, I went low fat and I lost weight because you excreted carbon. So it's all about carbon. Every macronutrient has carbon attached to it. I went on a huge tangent. I don't even know if I answered your
No, I
question,
love
but
that. And this is really important because we do hear these myths all the time, and
yeah,
the myths self like populate each other,
yeah,
like because
yeah,
so many people anecdotally go, I had the same experience, but they don't
yeah,
understand the science behind the experience they're having. It's
yeah,
TikTok is the worst for this. It's like
yeah,
people get on TikTok and they validate what each other are saying without any scientific backing for what they're validating, and then
100%.
it's all anecdotal and it's actually all a false narrative. It's really
Right,
they're losing water, they're
right,
losing muscle
right.
mass, they're losing other things. It's why I love the eVolt so much, because
Yeah,
I get to look at people's body fat versus their muscle mass. And I have my clients stand on it every 30, 60, or 90 days to make
yeah,
sure we're where we need to be.
yep,
And it doesn't matter whether they're on a low calorie diet, a
yep,
GLP-1, or a high exercise program. Whatever
yeah,
I use to put them in the calorie deficit, I still
yep,
track their progress using the eVolt. And if I coach them correctly with their nutrition correct, they all have the exact same outcome. The
yeah,
GLP-1s help the people that have metabolic disease or are
yeah,
stuck. I get to
yeah.
actually feed them more when they're on a GLP-1. So they're actually building more muscle. I'm just very fortunate. I figured that out very early on in the process
Yeah,
of coaching. But
yeah.
yeah, I see a lot of the same things you're saying with your clients. And so I'm happy that you got on a little tangent, which is good. I feel like in the industry, we are talking way too much about the macros and the numbers of calories. And I always like to simplify things for people. So mine is always like, I want you to eat 4 meals a day, a
Yep,
protein, a healthy fat, and
yep,
something with a high fiber food, something with
yep,
fiber in it in each of those meals.
yep,
Why do we keep seeing people splitting their meals? Like, I'll eat protein for breakfast and I'll eat vegetables for dinner, but they don't eat those three things in each of the meals. Is it that they're always in a hurry and they're just trying to grab, or is it they've gotten in this habit of counting their macros? And so they're like, oh, I didn't eat enough of this, so I'm going to shove it all into one meal instead of simplifying the process. What do you think
right.
causes that?
Yeah, I think you're right in all of those. Time or just like, oh, I got to get in my calories and my macros and I forgot and this and that. But yeah, I mean, we preach that all day. It's like PFC, where's my protein, fat, and color? So that we
Yeah.
can do that multiple times per day is going to help your blood sugars be nice, nice and even. My old job, we used to teach a menopause seminar and we'd feed them, eggs sauteed in butter and vegetables. And a couple hours later, like yogurt and seeds and fruit. And a couple hours later, salad and salmon and olive oil. And we'd be like, who's had a hot flash today? And nobody would ever have a hot flash because we were doing this all day for their blood sugars with protein, carb, and fat multiple times per day. And the carb thinking color. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
think
really
that's
is
super
so
simple.
important to find that balance. And it is so simple. If you just teach people protein, fat, and color, I just always say protein, fat, and fiber, or I
Yeah.
always talk about high fiber foods. Because if I
Yeah.
use the word fiber, I like color. I'm going to steal that from you, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If I say fiber, people will take a fiber supplement.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I am going to start using color because I think that's a really, really good one. But I always have said high fiber foods so they realize
Yeah.
it's something they actually have to like bite into.
Right. Right. Chill. Yep.
Um,
Good.
so my favorite hack for a snack or a meal is 2 hard-boiled eggs and an apple. For like, you can get it at a convenience store, you can get it at a grocery store, you can get it at a gas station now. You can get 2 hard-boiled eggs and an apple. What
Right.
is your on-the-go hack for people instead of going through fast food that they could grab that would be healthy?
Yeah, I like that one because yeah, like you said, you can definitely get that at a holiday gas station. My go-to is I just always keep around grass-fed beef chomps. So I have beef chomp and like an apple and 3 Brazilian nuts. I don't know why, but I need 3 Brazilian nuts for selenium for my thyroid. And like you said, an apple is anywhere. I probably maybe switch to because I can't always get that organic, and that's on the dirty dozen list for organic foods that I try to get. So maybe I'll do like a orange or something with a bigger peel. But yep, nitrate free chomp stick, 3 Brazilian nuts, and a fruit. There we are.
That's amazing. That's a really, really good hack. Let's talk about uh dried beef for a second. So like beef jerky, beef, that kind of stuff. We know that cheap dried beef and processed meat is one of the contributors to colon cancer. And so
Right.
a lot of people have stopped eating those things and they have just stopped them instead of finding the ones that are healthier that could be convenience foods. Like if I'm flying, I do what you're doing. Is like
Yeah.
I can fly with 2 hard-boiled eggs and an apple,
Yeah.
but a hard-boiled egg is a little awkward on an airplane and they
Yeah.
stink. So
Yeah.
I have started using some of those like meat sticks and things like that.
Yeah.
So how do we determine what is that healthy meat stick that we can eat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a cow can't really digest corn. So if it's not grass fed, it's going to be fed corn and soy, and it has 4 stomachs. A cow has 4 stomachs. So it's going to create more inflammation. So when you're taking in a non-grass fed beef, you're taking in a lot more omega 6s, which are the fire starters of inflammation. Where if it's fed grass, then it's also better for our ecosystem too. Everyone kind of poo-poos on, oh, like the cows are ruining our planet, but also it's like our ecosystem needs grazers, not just stuffed in a factory and just fed corn and soy and pumped with estrogen. It needs to graze for the ecosystem. Anyway, so it should say grass fed and it should have no nitrates. So we know that if it's nitrates or nitrites, that when conjunction with your stomach acid, yes, does create a lot more of those toxins contributing to cancer. So we want to be looking if it's from a cow, grass fed, and then there's no nitrates if you're getting a meat. But anything fat wise, like from a cow, grass fed butter, grass fed, if you're getting cream or something of that sort. And if you can't get that, then you do want to get the leanest cut of the meat because all the toxins are stored in the fat. So you want to get then like, okay, I can't do grass fed beef. So I got to do like 90% lean or just not eat like the fat of the steak to decrease those toxins.
But if they're getting grass fed, they can have a little bit of a fattier cut like a ribeye.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Because then that produces more omega 3s. When it's fed grass, then you have actually more omega 3s. So the anti-inflammatory.
So you
That
can have your ribeye steak if you're eating grass fed.
correcto. It's
Yeah.
hard to find. Yeah.
So I find it funny because it's so hard for people and I get why it's hard for them. It's hard for
Yeah.
me as well. And I work in this business. It's hard for
Yeah.
you. You work in this business. But I always look back at science and the science is out there, but the problem is Google is a silo of your own thoughts. It's AI is a silo of your own
Ah,
thoughts. And so people tend to Google what their own bias is. And so
yeah,
that's why people are like, I don't need a coach because I have Google. You absolutely need a coach
yeah,
because Google, I always say, if you were accused of a crime, a violent crime, and you had a chance of going to prison, you wouldn't use Google as your legal defense. You would hire an attorney that is an expert at your legal defense. So you need to hire an expert at nutrition. This is a great reason why, because that kind of knowledge, like you've given us so many good knowledge bombs today that Google
yeah,
is never going to give you because your own personal bias.
yeah.
Just your last thing, if you could give one word of advice to anybody starting any kind of weight loss program, whether it's GLP-1s or an exercise program or a low calorie diet or any type of exercise program or any type of weight loss program, what would that advice be from a nutrition standpoint?
Hmm. Well, we get results from work, patience, and consistency. So I think people, one, they want it so fast because we're just in that world of instant gratification. So I want the weight loss now, but you got to give it time. Two, they're never hitting their protein goals. They're like, it's not working. I'm like, you haven't been consistent. And then three, just having, yeah, it is work. It is work to go and plan your meals, grocery shop, this and that. But we always say choose your hard. So it's hard to eat healthy and meal prep and this and that. And it's hard to be overweight and in pain and on 75 medications. We need to choose our hard. So you get results from your working. It's consistency and then patience.
Well, what's really interesting that you say that, Steph, is with my GLP-1 patients, I have over 2,000 of them. I coach through the platform
Yeah.
and they all wanted to work the first month. All the
Yeah.
clinical trials say it works over a 1 year period.
Yeah.
And if it's not working in a month, doesn't mean it's not going to work 11 months from now. It does work
Yeah.
11 months from now. We want to keep you low and
Yeah.
slow. And it's a tool in your toolbox, including the nutrition piece. You can't
Yes.
do it instead of the nutrition piece. You can't do it instead of the exercise piece. It all
Right.
works hand in hand, and all the clinical trials told us that.
Right. Yep. Totally.
Well,
Good point.
Steph, I want to thank you for joining me today. It was a great conversation, and thank you so much.
No problem.
That was an awesome conversation about nutrition. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Weight Care podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps us reach more clients just like you. If you are ready to start your GLP-1 weight loss journey, please go to our website, which is www.joinweightcare.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another exciting episode. So until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing. Thanks for listening. I'm Sharon Polsky, your GLP-1 Fact Fairy. Ciao for now. The Weight Care podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The content shared here represents the views and opinions of the host and guests and should not be considered medical, health, or professional advice. The podcast is not a substitute for individualized care from qualified medical providers. Please consult with your healthcare provider before making decisions that may affect your health and wellness. Any statements about treatments, health protocols, or medications discussed are based on personal experience or professional expertise and may not be suitable for everyone. Always seek personalized advice from a licensed healthcare professional who understands your specific health needs.